Who is Will Winslow? Will Winslow is an old man who's lived many years in many places, starting off as a farm boy in northern Maine on a potato farm, picking rocks and potatoes. I like to be heard. I like to put my ideas out, and I very seldom convince people of my idea, but at least I've got to get it out. And that's with my artwork, that's what I do. This is my ideas. You know, I always drew, and drawing was my thing. And I didn't know that I didn't know how to draw, but that's all I ever did. So I drove up to Providence, found Rhode Island School of Design, went to the admissions officer and said, "I'm going to school here." And he says, "Oh yeah, well, show me your portfolio." I said, "I don't have a portfolio." He said, "All right, well, show me your high school transcripts." And I said, "My high school burned down, and all the records burned down with it." Thank God somebody did it, because my grades were we're not that great. I didn't care. So he said, "All right." He said, "You're not leaving, are you?" I said, "No, I'm here. I'm here for the duration." So he sent me off to take tests, and I aced them because I wanted to go to school. And I spent 4 of the best years of my life at the Rhode Island School of Design at RISD. Met a luscious young Italian lady there, who is now my wife. And we took off for New York, because you gotta bust the big city if you're gonna do it at all. I get into publishing, children's book publishing in New York as a designer. Jane was illustrating children's books at that time. There was one studio in New York when I was there. It was called Pushpin Studio. And there were a number of great artists there. These people all influenced me when I was first starting out as drawing. But I always went back to people like Norman Rockwell was, I thought he was just amazing. People like that, the drawing ability, not just the designing ability, but the really being in control of the tools. And then I got a job in Massachusetts at Addison Wesley Publishing in Reading as art director for the juvenile division there. And I was there for working on children's books for 12 years, I think. It was wonderful. Anyway, it was great job, but like often happens in my life, I get bored doing the same thing over and over. Left, started my own graphic design business, and did that until I think the year 2000, something like that. And I finally gave it up. Became a nanny to my granddaughter Lily when she was just a baby. And I did that for, I don't know how many years I did that, 2, 3 years, I don't know. Anyway, that was also the best job. I go from one best job in life to the next best job in life. So the time that I did not spend with my own children when they were growing up because I was too busy trying to make a career, I made that up by doing it with Lily. And I got a second chance to raise a child, to learn what a child is like. And it was lovely, lovely. I've done 3 big paintings of Lily. This was I think a 3x4, ended up a 3x4 painting. And it ended up quite different from what this is, but this is what I like to do. I should probably do all black and white stuff because I do better. I don't understand color nearly as much as I do black and white area, so I probably still should stick to that, but I don't, because it's always the challenge of color. I've got to master this thing somehow. It's bugging me. Things that I like people to know, okay? Making a point. This is it. This is FDR saying we're all of us come from revolutionaries and immigrants. And I think it's absolutely apt for today's political climate. I work from sketches. I start off, I doodle a lot. I always did. I'd be in meetings and I'd sit there and doodle because I get so bored of stuff. So I doodle and I work out from my sketchbooks. This is a drawing, sketches from up in Monhegan Island, starting off with that. Moving to this, moving to details, and ending up with this. So, go from this to this, okay? This is how I work. This is ranting about the refugee problem. And I've developed this into final drawings, which will be in the show that the studio artists here put on in June. Random stuff. This is my best work because it's the most immediate. It is what really comes from the gut. It is not contrived. It's just my feelings come out in my sketches. Too often, when I try to translate that into finished work, I admit to myself that I prefer my sketches. There's something free and real about them, which is hard due to my lack of ability in using paint and brush. I should just burn everything else and keep my sketchbooks. But I don't. It's like writing. It's wrist movement mostly, because it's small, scale. And when I do big paintings, it's my whole body. My whole body is getting into it. I don't know. It's just easier to see areas, negative areas. I don't know. It's just a very different feeling when I do large stuff. And I don't know why I wanted to do Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and the expulsion, but I had a big wall in a show and a big wall to cover, so I wanted to, I don't know. I just wanted to do it. I like to work large. This is, what's his name? Oh, Quetzalcoatl. He was the master. He's God. Okay, he's the one. And it's just so decorative and bright and savage and pure. I love doing stuff like this. This was promotion for a book that I did. This is a book cover, Politically Correct Bible Stories, which was done for a new publisher in New York, startup publisher. It was the one book we did, and then he went out of business after that, so we at least got one book out of it. And I don't know, it tells. This is my granddaughter, California. This is Taylor. Anyway, that's it. This is what I'm doing now. I like to do sculpture too, dabble in it. And I've got a project coming up with masks. And so I started off with a mask and I just kept going with it. This one too. So I like to dabble in a lot of things. Taking one subject and how many different ways can you see this thing? This is a painting. I like this painting. A lot of people don't like the subject, and the subject to me is immaterial. It doesn't matter. And it was, I saw a picture in the New Yorker of a Parisian butcher standing there holding a pig's head, and I said, that's crazy. What the hell? What's he doing that for? And so I did a series of paintings. I also did a much larger one of the same thing because I thought there weren't enough pigs in it. So he's standing in the midst of a hole, in the middle of a big pile of carcasses. But I like it. I like the way I handle this. Let the background. With paintings, I start off. I can't work on a white canvas. White canvas is intimidating. So I always put a ground on it, and this was the ground, and then I start working into it. So I like the way that one. You know, and I do graphic work, so it was right up my alley. It was stuff I like to do. The negative, positive, negative shapes and stuff intrigues me. How much color can you get out of black and white? By the chemical reaction of your eye opening and closing, because it's dark, it closes. It opens light, it closes. So the physics of your eye is part of the art. It's doing the work for you. You know? So I go all the way from this ranting to children's book illustration, to fantasy stuff, to here's Mr. Trump and his pussy cat, so you can get you an idea what that's about. Okay, it's not good for your soul to discriminate, to be against something, be for something, not against it. Everything. Well, in my own family, I have people who are against certain things for no other reason that religion is. Someone has said this person is not okay because for whatever reason, they're black, they're gay, they're blah, 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 it doesn't matter. And I say, no, that's not your problem. It's not your problem. Nobody's hurting you. Before these people, not against these people. In this, Lord knows, I can rail against people. People who walk across the street looking at their phone when in the middle of the traffic, and I toot my horn and I say, wake up. So I'm against things too, but not because this is some kind of ideology. Ideology can be the ruination of things. It can be the rejuvenation of bringing together. It can be the ruination. And it's the people who are against I'm against people who are against. I do what I do. If someone likes it, that's great for the ego. It's good. If they don't like it, I pass it off. Not my problem, it's their problem. I do not do art simply because someone will buy it. I do art because I got to get it out. It's the process. It is always the process which is important to me, not the final product. It's the doing of it. The doing of it. It's getting the idea out and then feeling the paint on the canvas or feeling the charcoal on there, all over me. It's the process always. After the process, after it's done, I couldn't care less. I got invited into the brush art gallery. And I said, no, I've been doing that my whole life. I don't want to go back to that. But they kept after me, and I finally said, okay, it's easy to get in. It'll be just as easy to get out. So I came here, and I've been here for I don't know how many years now, and it's like my second home. I couldn't live without this place now. We have a beautiful family here. I come here almost every day. I walk down. I may get here at 10 and leave at 4 or 5. Short day, read my paper, do some art, whatever. But I have a very complete life here. I'm 82 years old, and I've never felt better in my life. And it's small, and it's messy, but it's my workshop. It's where I do my work. This is like a culmination. I love this, us doing it together. When Jean suggested she wanted to do something together, and I said, we never do anything together. We are adversarial with each other. And she says, but if our art could go together. And I just says, I don't know how our art's going to go together. So she started the big one over there, the red figures.
I did that so that he would do a response to it, and his response...
My response was to do all lettering.
Was not a response.
It was my response. Okay. Hey.
And I did that theme, the nudes, because I don't usually do that.
I didn't do the nudes.
So that he could respond in kind, and he didn't. He did letters.
But through Lindsay of Uncharted, my favorite place to sit at the bar.
Yeah, Lindsay Parker is the third artist represented
here. Absolutely. Right.
She hung a beautiful show.
Together, and I'm amazed how, when you put the proper lighting with the proper hanging of a piece of art, my studio is one canvas in front of another, all stacked against the wall. Here, I see it with new eyes, and so Lindsay, I want to do a shout out for her, 100%. It's like a final shout out to us, this show. Whether we'll ever do another one together.
I worked for a year on...
I've still got about 40, 50 years to go, so hey, so who the hell knows?
I worked for a year we booked this about just about a year ago in May, and I worked on my paintings and then added some like the heads and some of the monoprints that I thought that had not been done in the past year, but I thought would go with the other pieces. Pretty steady from beginning of May till the end of January, and then we took a couple of months off of the winter, and I came back and worked another month finishing everything up. So it represents a lot of work and time well spent. I've been an artist all my life. Before I could walk, I was drawing. And unlike Will, I prepared forever to go to RISD. That was my dream, my goal in life. I got a scholarship to go to the junior school when I was 13. And I loved RISD, and that's all I wanted to do. And I was a good student, so my teachers wanted me to go to an Ivy League school or Stanford, and I said, nope, I'm going to RISD. And like Will said, it was the best 4 years of my life. It was inevitable that we would become a couple once we started to date, and we went to New York. I became a book illustrator. I could not ever imagine doing graphic design because I don't measure anything right. And my heroes, unlike Will's, who were graphic designers, were people like Edmund Dulac and Arthur Rackham, who did fairies and princesses and forest animals. And so I spent, I don't know, the next 15, 20 years doing book illustration, having babies. I started to offer classes and then substituted in the public schools teaching art, and I realized I wanted to work with special needs people. So I went back to school to be an expressive therapist. And that has been my life for the last, how many years? Almost 40 years now. I not only became an art therapist, but my real passion from graduate school was psychodrama, using the theater arts in therapy. The main part of my job when I worked in a hospital and in private practice has been working with people who suffered trauma, especially sexual abuse. My artwork is more compartmentalized than what Will was describing, because all my social justice and work that I do in the helping professions is, I don't think it comes out in my work. I keep that separate from, what I do in my studio. It doesn't seem to cross paths. I do feel very passionately about working with victims, and I bring art to them. I work a lot of times with the women in the domestic violence shelter, and we do art. We do soul collage, which is intuitive collage. So I bring the expressive arts to them. But when I do my own art, it's kind of a relief from that. It's separate. Whether it's art or drama, it's a way of accessing really the internal person, the soul, and therefore it's very precious. And I have a lot of training, many years of training, and I train others to do this work, because we have to respect the power of art and drama to open a person's heart and soul, and we want to do that with a lot of respect, creating a balance between openness and privacy. In a group, we do interactive warm-ups that can be very simple for people to do, but they build on one another so that eventually there's an openness and an ability for people to be more spontaneous than they usually would be, but it's a gradual process. Everybody has some wound, and I just this past weekend I did a soul collage workshop, and I knew that many of the people in the group are being treated for cancer and serious cases of cancer. They didn't know that about each other, and that didn't come up, but it was just beautiful to see them be able to create something very healing and very lovely together. And it's just a beautiful opportunity. I lead people through a little visualization, like a gentle meditation visualization, and I usually end it with having the energy come into their arms and hands, and their eyes, because this is mostly what you use to make the collage. And then I give them a little box, and they randomly select images, just anything they're attracted to or that might go together. And they start, and they have little boards to work on, and they start cutting and gluing, and then they find they might need other pieces to go with that, and so they work about 2 hours and come up with the collage. And we have a way of talking about them so that they become something inside the collage. In one of mine, I might say, I'm the one who is floating up from above, and what I have to tell Jean is to just let go and be one with the energy from below. So that's the kind of thing that starts the sharing, and then people will share with one another, and they talk about what that might relate to in what's happening in their lives. These are icons, buildings. I have, about 20 boxes. These I put on the back. See all my backs? These are the fronts, these are the backs. And it's a way of doing collage without any words, and it's all intuitive. These are some I've made recently. And monoprints are very much like painting, but you're painting on a piece of plexiglass. That's the plate of glass. And I probably put the brown background on, and then I had cut out this shape in Mylar. And so where that went, the brown didn't print. So then I was able to go back and paint on that and print with it. So it's 2 or 3 times that I printed, and you're working with negative and positive. And this I scratched out. I scratched out his whiskers, and then this mottled look. The texture comes from having already gone through the press. So I must have that went through the press, and then I printed it, used it to print with, and so it's working with negative and positive, which is not my best feature. I have trouble with the back and forth, but doing monoprint has taught me how to make good use of negative and positive. And this is another one in the cat series, which is a monoprint. So I have been experimenting with painting, and basically what I do is put layers of paint, lately mostly oil, on a canvas, and then rub it off. I go through rag after rag, rub it off, leave it. I work on 5, 6, 7 paintings at a time, and then look at the painting and turn it around, and before long, shapes and textures emerge, and that's what I go with. So I don't plan them, unlike, Will says he does sketches and he plans things, and mine, I've just been teaching myself how to use the paint, letting the medium talk through me. My heart is the accidents, the surprising stuff that isn't planned, because it short circuits my head. I don't want to use my head at all. I use my eye, but not my head. That's a way in which my being an expressive therapist kind of conflates with my being an artist, because it's a way of getting at stuff that we don't understand, we don't know. Maybe it's from another lifetime, I don't know. I have no idea. But when you begin to feel, oh, that was hard, but look what I got and how wonderful it feels. I got that when I started doing monoprinting. It was like, wow. And then also when I went back to painting and saw that I was developing my own style, it was a moment or moments of victory and triumph. And so to really search for that moment of authenticity. And certainly to make accommodations for how you're going to make a living. You may not want to do that through your art, or be able to for quite a while. Be better at marketing than I am, and better at using technology for marketing. That's something I wish I knew how to do, or I think it's too late for me to do that now. If I had an assistant, I could. So to be able to incorporate different parts of your life and different worlds into your art, and always experiment. Go think outside the box. Just find a way of doing something wild.